First speaker today is Richard S. Courtney. He's an independent consultant on matters concerning energy and the environment. He is technical advisor to several UK MPs and mostly UK members of the European Parliament. He's been called as an expert witness to UK Parliament's House of Commons Select Committee on Energy and also the House of Lords Select Committee on the Environment. He's an expert peer reviewer for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. In November of 1997, he chaired the plenary session of Climate Change Conference in Bonn. June 2000, he was one of 15 scientists invited from around the world to give a briefing on climate change to the U.S. Congress in Washington, D.C., and then he chaired one of 3 briefing sessions. His achievements have been recognized by the UK's Royal Society for Arts and Commerce, PZCK, the Management Association of Poland's mining industry, and the British Association for the Advancement of Science. Having been the contributing technical editor of Coal Trans International, he is now on the editorial board of Energy and the Environment. He is a founding member of the European Science and Environment Forum, ESEF. Without further ado, Dr. Richard Courtney.
Morning.
Morning.
Friends, we all know that the books of the IPCC are the Bible of man-made global climate change. And according to the books of scientific revelation in that Bible, the atmosphere was in a state of Eden before human industrial civilization. Then humans began to consume the forbidden fruit of fossil fuels. So the atmosphere became contaminated with an excess of carbon dioxide. Humans continue to practice the sin of industrial civilization, and therefore the contamination of the atmosphere continues to increase. As a result, our civilization is doomed by our sin as surely as Sodom and Gomorrah. The world will warm with the result that the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are set to roam the world, spreading pestilence, war, famine, and death. We can stop them from destroying the world as we know it by turning from our sin of industrial civilization, but the sins of the fathers are weighed upon their children even unto the 7th generation. Because our sin has already added carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, and it will continue to wreak its havoc for centuries to come. We must repent and turn from our consumption of the forbidden fruit to avoid its worst effects on our children and our children's children. That is the prevailing faith, which is being spread by many proselytes and has been adopted as the state religion in many places, notably the European Union. But I am here to proclaim the message in the old song: the things that you're liable to read in the Bible, it ain't necessarily so. The paper I've provided to accompany this presentation expands on the little I intend to say now. I'm going to tell you some results of our investigation of the true causes of the recent rise in atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration that we published in this paper. I mentioned this paper and its findings in my peer review for the IPCC, but it is not mentioned in the IPCC's 4th assessment and synthesis reports. The IPCC doctrine says anthropogenic, that is man-made, emissions of carbon dioxide, CO2, directly add to atmospheric carbon dioxide. That doctrine is clearly wrong. The annual pulse of anthropogenic CO2 into the atmosphere should relate to the annual increase of CO2 in the atmosphere, if one is directly causal of the other. But their variations greatly differ from year to year. Furthermore, The annual increase to CO2 in the atmosphere is the residual of the seasonal changes to CO2 in the atmosphere, and the Northern Hemisphere seasonal changes decrease and increase each year are about an order of magnitude greater than both the total annual anthropogenic emission and the total annual increase to the CO2 in the atmosphere. Any assessment of the causes of the rise of atmospheric CO2 concentration over a period of years requires assessment of the changes that occur each year, because the annual increase to the CO2 in the atmosphere is the residual of the seasonal changes to the CO2 in the atmosphere. Little of the carbon and CO2 in the Earth-ocean-atmosphere system is in the air. And throughout each year, the CO2 in the air increases and reduces as natural processes emit CO2 to the air and sequester CO2 from the air. The rapid changes to atmospheric CO2 concentration during each year show the system very rapidly adjusts to seasonal changes an order of magnitude greater than the annual anthropogenic emission. The anthropogenic CO2 emission is to the air. But the rapid changes in atmospheric CO2 concentration here shown do not suggest that the system is near to saturation that would prevent sequestration of the anthropogenic emission from the air. Can you pass me the water?